welcome in to another episode of the My Two Bits Gators Football Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ben, joined as always by your other host, Mr. Randy. Randy, that's a thing that happened. How you feeling?
Man, real good. The energy is palpable. A lot of things happening. I know we're going to get into it in the pod, but back-to-back signature wins in the swamp against ranked opponents. This one, a number 10 opponent. And regardless of how we won, a dub in this fashion is a dub well-deserved, not to mention securing a bowl game. And I'm trying not to get too ahead of myself, but things are on the up and up. I'll just say that.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Interesting that you kind of mentioned there, regardless of how we won. I'm curious what you have to say on that. Well, we may get there in a second. But nonetheless, I am right there with you. The energy and the excitement around the team right now is without question palpable. Clearly, recruits are feeling it. We are gonna talk to that. My goodness, you thought last week was exciting. Holy cow, we are just popping on the recruiting trail right now, which is outstanding. We needed to be. Clearly, we were getting real short on time, so this couldn't have come at a better couple of weeks stretch here. So really good to see that. But yeah, so no, I'm right there with you. This was quite the weekend. I won't say that I fully didn't expect it, but I certainly wouldn't have predicted it, right? So yeah, it was a very welcome gift on Saturday afternoon. That's for sure. That's for sure. Christmas came a little early for sure. But to that end, let's get things started and break it all down. Go through this as we always do. Start things off here with our intro, our mission, our accuracy disclaimer, and our vision, and then of course our agenda for the pod. So our mission, as always, is to provide factual analysis of all things Florida Gator football. Our accuracy disclaimer is that our information will be accurate to the best of our possible ability. We will cite our sources whenever we use them, and all statistical data comes from either ESPN or stats.ncaa.org unless otherwise cited, and recruiting data comes from on3.com, and we will have some recruiting data this evening. So our vision is to have unfiltered conversation around the product on the field, as well as recruiting and overall coaching decisions. Our analysis will be based on a review of film, and while we will express opinion, that opinion should always be based in some form of fact. We will also evaluate strategy and tactics and discuss our observation of player personnel decisions, as well as on the field execution. All right. Get things started here, as always, with our agenda for the game weeks. We will start with our home eyes. The exciting plays from the game, of course, and we have to, of course, limit ourselves to 3, which is going to be tough once again. We then will go through the Chomp segment, talk about the offense, do the defensive segment in Gator Bait. We will then talk about our complaints from the game, and there may be a couple, believe it or not, in Visor Throw. We will then talk, as already mentioned, recruiting in the Hatchling segment. We will then talk about this team's amazing culture and pride of the sunshine, and then we will also talk about some officiating with Move Back You Suck. And then finally, we will wrap things up, get a state of the program take from both Randy and myself, and then we will play another round of Keep It or Pitch It for this week's game with Talon Nasty. And then last but not least, we will review the Sims from the same game, as of course, and then sign off. So with that, get us started, if you would please, with your home eyes for this week.
All right, my man, you got it. And home eyes, again, I'm trying to do better. I know you had me in purgatory there as far as trying to cheat on the home eyes. I'm going to keep it real simple. A lot of great ones to pull from this weekend, but I'll keep it real simple. Lagway fighting off a sack at the end of the first quarter, throw a dime and first down to Badger. Now, you can say Lagway fighting off a sack. Which one?
Yeah, for real. That's my theme from last week. Which one?
Yeah, which one, right? First one, the second one, either one. To know that they did it twice in a drive. And, you know, the good thing is, coming out of the LSU game last week, we know the hamstring was not feeling worse, right? He was progressing well. And so whatever he had, you know, whatever juice he had, where, you know, especially formulated Gatorade, it was working because his size and strength and ability showed through and through in both of those plays. So all I'm going to say is Lagway fighting off a near sack #bananas, BANANAS. Okay. The second one I'll point to for home my is going to be the 3rd and 2 for Florida, 7:58 left to go in the second quarter. Lagway under a little bit of pressure. Not sure where he's going to go with it. He's going to step up. He fakes a throw and flicks a little toss to Badger coming across the middle for a huge first down. So first thing, great help by the line to secure it. He was shifty, so the O-line had to move with him. Great job not holding. Now the other thing, great job with the fake. Then great job finding Badger in motion to get him steps. Not to mention he gets the first down. And what do we see come to his rescue? Or not even rescue, he didn't need it, but the push. The O-line. Here comes the O-line for another 4 yards.
The entire O-line. Like
Bingo.
Everybody.
Bingo. What?
Loved that.
Phenomenal. So that's number 2. Number 3 is going to be from the 25, right? This is about 7 left to go before halftime. 1st and 10. We just got a big first down plus the face mask penalty. Put us at the 25, 1st and 10. Lagway, a little screen to Baugh. And who is there to spring Baugh? None other than your friendly lineman, Crenshaw Dixon, and then George. Great blocking up front, and Baugh goes in barely untouched from 27, from about 25-ish yards out. Phenomenal play, great execution to spring him for the go-ahead touchdown score. Those are my 3 hung mice, B. What do you got?
I don't have any of the same. I'm amazed. I don't know if that's ever happened. I don't know if that's ever happened. I really don't. So
folks,
everything you picked, I think that's a first. And that's wild because that might be a first. So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, every play you just mentioned was in the first half.
It did. See, so it's funny. Let's see. First, it was, and then the other 3 that I had to weed out. Actually, I'm sure you'll probably have some of those, but yes, first half.
So all 3 of mine are from the fourth quarter.
Oh, here we go.
Yep. So all 3 of mine are in the fourth quarter. So I love yours for the record. And there were, as we mentioned, a lot of choices here, right? There were a lot of really good plays in this game. A lot of different opportunities to pick from, and I'm definitely a fan of the ones you chose. This is really weird. I don't think we've ever had 3 different completely ever before. We'd have to go back and look, but anyway. So moving along. So I'll use your I guess saying to describe the first one, and I got a DJ to DK right in the fourth quarter to start this off with a 41-yard gain in a clutch situation, right? So DJ comes back, play action, moves to his right a little bit, and then steps back to his left and delivers another outstanding deep ball. Now, DK did have to kind of go down after it a little bit. He didn't run up underneath it the same way Badger kind of does, but nonetheless, he still made an outstanding catch, and it was still a beautiful ball. I mean, it's a long way to throw a ball, and it was very catchable nonetheless. However, what we noticed is that Ole Miss had done a really good job covering the deep routes all day. We'll have a conversation about why later, but nonetheless, this time though, DK ran an outstanding route. He put a head fake on the safety that completely froze him as he came back inside and left him just wide open. And then, of course, he was rewarded. When you get open downfield and you got Lagway as your quarterback, you're getting the ball, right? And it's going to be a gem, of course. So not only a great play, but as I mentioned, at a crucial time in the game where we really needed to get a drive put together to get points, right? And when DJ's back there, a drive can be a couple of plays, as we know. So in this case, 41 yards, and all of a sudden we're in business, right? So that was really, really great to see. And again, really, the reason I picked it, even though there might have been some more exciting overall plays, it was the timing for me that was so crucial, and that's why I wanted it in there. So that's number 1. Number 2, I'm actually surprised you didn't have this one. I figured for sure you were going to have this one. And that was the Montreal Wildcat TD run on Senior Day. Yeah. An outstanding run. Yeah, I figured it was somewhere in your finalists. It was an outstanding run. And it's a showcase for what Montrell is truly best at, right? We've talked about it all season that maybe he wasn't always the best back in certain situations with this O-line, but this play was vintage, perfect Montrell. He waited for the blocks to set up and the play to develop. Then he hit the right hole at the right time with speed and power, and nobody had a chance. I mean, nobody got a hand on him, but if they had of, good luck. He was not he was not going to be denied that end zone on that play. He was once he hit that first hole, it was over. I mean, he was gone. And even better for him to get this go ahead and ultimately final score on senior day in his last game in the swamp. I mean, that you can't write that one up any better. That is just fantastic. So that one had to make my cut. And then last but not least, we give it up for Bryce Thornton, SEC, co-SEC Defensive Player of the Week, by the way. Outstanding. Not one,
Yes.
but two late fourth quarter picks. Now, listen, I know they weren't particularly flashy. The first one was pretty good, but both times, importantly, he was exactly where he should have been, roaming, playing the QB's eyes, right? Not really roaming on the first one, but correctly playing coverage on that one. And then in the second one, correctly breaking on the ball as he should. Now, we have talked over and over again about a certain other safety on this team who is not doing that consistently or hasn't been all season. I will say I'm seeing some marginal improvement, thankfully, in these last couple of games. It's still not great, but it's gotten better. I'm referring to Castell, and it's at least improved somewhat. It's not near as bad as it was at the beginning of the season, but it's still not great. This was exactly what you want to see. And I'm not going to undervalue just because Dart made ill-advised throws. You still have to be where you're supposed to be and make those plays. And he was. And that's what we got to have, right? So both of these picks were obviously huge, as the first could have been game sealing, probably should have been game sealing. Again, we'll talk. And then, of course, the second one, and then, of course, the second one was. So, can't undervalue that. In addition, as we'll talk also later, Bryce had 14 tackles in this game, which is ludicrous. But moving along, those are my oh my's for this week, and I think yours are great too. Like I said, but 6 different plays. That's pretty cool. I don't again
Hey, man,
not sure that's
great
ever
job.
happened.
No,
So
great job. And
thank
for
you.
the record, two of those were in my final, but then I just had to take it up for the first half. But I'm looking back at some of our other notes, and I do believe this is the first time that we had the 6 that were, completely different. So that is wild. Good job. Congrats.
No, absolutely, absolutely. You too. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, let's move it on. Let's talk a little offense here. Um, so first things first, as always, get the data out of the way. So Lagway's QB rating, again, NFL QB rating here is what we look at. Anything over 100 is good, despite not necessarily throwing for a ton of yards. Right, and only had a buck 80 through the air, I believe, and 59% completion rate. Get a 109.93 QB rating, which is solid. Nothing wrong with that at all. We also had 4.46 yards per carry without Lagway's sack total. Now, I took it out because even though Lagway is a mobile quarterback by nature, which means we would normally leave his yardage in, clearly we are not still running plays for him. Clearly he is not overly mobile. I know he kind of scrambled a couple times, but that is not 100% running quarterback back there. So I am treating it much more like I would a Mertz situation there, where yeah, theoretically Mertz can scramble, but he's not a dual threat running quarterback right now. He's just not. So for that reason, I felt it was disingenuous to include his yardage in the total, so I took it out. So 4.46 yards per carry represents the backs running, and as we discussed, his 109.93 rating. So that's what we're looking at. Both pretty good numbers against what is widely considered one of the better defenses, if not certainly top 3 defenses in the SEC. That's pretty darn good. So, having said that, though, I think this was very much the tale of two halves in this game offensively. First half was pretty solid, especially running the ball. And of course, Lagway, as you mentioned, made play after play, excuse me, out of basically thin air. He really just did phenomenally well, right? I mean, the stuff he was pulling off is like Houdini back there. He was just escaping everything and then just making unbelievable throws with no time at all to make them. I mean, this kid just continues to be incredibly impressive, and it's going to be hard for me to find enough expletives to say in a good way about him next season, right? It's just I'm going to run out. So I can't wait for that, by the way. I welcome the challenge. But then the second half came along, in particular the third quarter, but really, even aside from the scoring drive in the fourth, there's really not much to talk about other than Ole Miss making adjustments as to what was beating them in the first half and us not having an answer for them. Surprise, surprise. We talked last week, right? I asked you a question when we started the pod last week about what's the better feeling, or what's the more significant feeling, excuse me, not the better feeling, certainly, but the more significant feeling. Tough loss, really tough loss, or a really great win.
Right.
I think it's really important to think about that, because as great as this win felt and as great as this win was, I'm not trying to take away, this was a phenomenal win. It was. And I don't want my take here to come off the wrong way, that I'm some kind of Debbie Downer, or that I'm, trying to pour, cold water on what is a phenomenal win. You will not find a person happier about this win than I am. I mean, maybe that's an unfair thing to say, but there are very few. I am as diehard as it comes, and I assure you I am over the moon that we won this game. But as we try to do on this pod, I try to take off the orange and blue goggles, we both do, and look at things from as unbiased a perspective as we can. And this is not going to be a popular take here, but we really didn't do things we should have done in this game to take advantage of the opportunities we had against this team, especially in the passing game, right? And we've talked about this before. Despite running the ball well for most of the first half and on the scoring drive in the fourth quarter, we did not try to hit Ole Miss with anything creatively anyway, downfield, where they have shown weaknesses throughout the season. Their secondary showed as being prone to being able to be hit by a deep ball. But guess what? They knew that was coming, so they were prepared for it when there was only one route running downfield, as there consistently was. The continued lack of anything advanced, or even multiple, right? Not even advanced, just multiple combinations. Even if they're not advanced multiple combinations, that we lacked yet again in this game, that we have called for time and time again, we continue to not see. And that is not taking advantage of another team's weakness once again, right? I in no way, right, want to take away from the joy here. I do not want to take away from the joy. But the problem is, as I already mentioned, we have to see this objectively. And wins can mask problems that show themselves to be much more obvious when the score ends up the other way, right? We focus on what went wrong when we lose. We don't focus on things that weren't good when we win, because we won, and who cares? That's not a good way to look at things. That's not smart, and it leaves you open for potential future problems in a big way if you just go, we won, it's fine. It's not fine. This isn't fine. It continues to not be fine, and it's going to continue to hold us back, as I've mentioned over and over and over again. It held us back in this game. This game shouldn't have been as close as it was, quite frankly. It was almost Tennessee all over again. It really almost was. Fortunately, we did okay in the red zone and they didn't. That was the difference, really, when you break down, the drives by drive. But ultimately, there are still magazine racks full of issues here. And we have got to do something about it. We've got to do something about it, whatever it might be. Billy changing his approach, getting an OC, whatever. I don't care. But this can't just keep going the way it's going, or it's going to get more and more exposed. Ole Miss did the things, despite having a weaker secondary. That was the weakness of this defense. The front seven was phenomenally strong. The weakness of this defense was in the back end, and they basically took the deep ball away. Really wasn't there other than a couple of opportunities, one of which we got, one of which we, missed, but it really wasn't open otherwise when we threw it. And then most of the time we just didn't throw it because it wasn't there. This is not a good secondary. And yet it wasn't there because it was schemed appropriately to stop it. So That's what I got for the offense. What's your take, bud?
Very well. And I get it. I should probably switch voices to commend you on that segment. Well done, oh pragmatic one.
We gonna get Yoda every week now?
maybe. I'm gonna keep it pretty high level. Lagway's QBR 109.93. As you mentioned before, anything north of 100, good.
Yes.
The kid's at 80%, 85%. Obviously, he was a little bit more mobile for this game. We saw it in two of those rushes, those little runs that he had. Limited, of course, one got called back for offensive holding. That was what it was. But outside of that, he's getting healthy, getting healthier, and the mobility is still there. To that point, I was curious to see what the passing game would look like. Especially looking at Ole Miss and their struggles in the secondary. They had a few, not as many injuries as us, but still had some injuries nonetheless. And the interesting part, and you just uncovered it, there was a lot covered up. There was a lot happening to the point where that deep threat that we thought that could be there and would be there just wasn't there. It was extremely limited. Now, don't get me wrong. We did go downfield. We had some explosive plays. We had 6 explosive passing plays. Great. But at the same time, there could have been so much more given the concept and the timing. More specifically, that third quarter was absolutely what's the adjective we use? Horrendous, abysmal, like
yep.
That, to be honest with you, B, when I thought back about the game and then the Tennessee game, I'm like, oh boy, here's where we let it get away from us, right? This is where Jackson Dart puts his little Jackson Dart cape thingy on, and Lane gets a wild hair, and they're doing some funny thing. Thank goodness they dropped probably 4 passes in that third quarter.
And muffed a punt. If not for that.
Punt, right? Definitely helped. So no doubt. But that's the other thing too. Like you would think that because of those things, having that been said, there would be tremendous opportunity we'd have to do something different in the passing game. But again, regardless of anything else, to B's point, a win is a win. Still, vanilla-esque type of offense, fine. It is what it is. We know the shortcomings there. I don't think we have to beat that horse too much more dead. The horse has been dead. It is what it is. DJ makes the difference. If you have another type of pocket passing quarterback, if you have another type of quarterback who takes a little bit longer to go through reads, if you have another type of quarterback that is not as creative, that is not as imaginative, that is not as confident, we are not doing, and we are not on the momentum train that we're on, period. DJ makes the difference.
You're not wrong there.
Right? I don't think anybody could look at this game, especially the last 2 games, and say that DJ does not make the difference. Now, 5-1 as a starter, and for the record, that one game was the Georgia game, which he could not finish.
4-1. 4-1.
Did I say 5-1? I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry.
You're thinking about this week, but that's
getting
okay.
Ahead.
I like it.
Getting ahead, 4-1. But that's the thing. Didn't finish the Georgia game. We could stipulate, we can surmise, but at the end of the day, 4-1. Spot on, kid, for a true freshman. Montreal Johnson.
And like you said, 4-0 when he finishes the game. 4-0 when he plays it out. So no really, that's what's so impressive. You can't. I don't think you can put Georgia over his head right now. Anyway.
No, and that is very true. Montreal Johnson, come get some flowers. Senior day, big day in the swamp. It's really good to see some of the replays, seeing Billy with the seniors coming out, having some time with them, just the amount that they've been through, especially over the past 3 years. Obviously, Montreal came over from Louisiana with Billy Napes. But, hey, 18 rushes, 107 yards. He just came back from injury a game ago. And even last game, he really didn't have that, integral of a role against LSU. Well, guess what? He showed it today. And to your point, B, him and Wildcat doing what he does, patient run, a little stutter step here, waiting for the block to develop, waiting for the gap to open up. Well done. Well done. And he had 2 trucks in this game. He gave out some trucking, boy. He was using that CDL at all while it had last for his last game in the swamp. So kudos to you, Trell. Great job. Scoring first, a theme that I rather enjoy, right? We're going to win the coin toss or whatever the case might be. We defer. We give the ball to LSU. Go ahead, try and score. Give the ball to Ole Miss. Okay, go ahead, try and score. But we end up scoring first. Love that theme. We might not score on the first drive, but scoring first sets the tone, right? And not to mention scoring last. Points in the final quarter, putting the last points on the board to seal it or to go ahead score, whatever the case might be. Mm-hmm. Scoring first and scoring last, not necessarily a bad thing.
No, seldom a bad thing.
Right? Exactly. Now, again, like you said, to your point, B, there's some inefficiencies within what happened, especially in that third quarter. But outside of that, not to take away from an amazing win in the Swamp. If I called last week's win a signature win, I would call this week a solidifying win, especially when it calls for qualifying for a bowl game. Okay, enough of that. 19 first downs. We lost the first down battle. Ole Miss, 24 first downs. Okay. Rushing yards, 164 rushing to Ole Miss's 141. We win the rushing yard game. Phenomenal. Net yards passing, 180 to 323. Didn't win that game. That's okay. We knew we wouldn't win it. Offensive yards, 344. Right? 344 to 464. That was what it was. No problem. No fumbles. Ball security. Okay, the one interception, freakish play, great for their safety, good concentration, great hands. Good concentration, better hands.
And poor throw by Lagway. He put too much heat on that, and it was high. That was a hot ball. Right? But to your point, freak pick. I mean, to get that one-handed in that situation, that's wild.
Exactly. He put some Frank's Red Hot on it. That's what it was. It didn't need Frank. It didn't need Frank's at all. A little bit too hot. DK, yeah, he could have caught that, but again, too short, too fast, no problem.
Yep.
Outside of that, the possession time, I mean, it wasn't bad. 29-28 UF, 30-03 Ole Miss, and we were pretty much even throughout the season as far as time of possession with them, right? Ranking in the nation. Okay.
Yep.
Third down conversions, 7 of 15. What?
Yeah, I saw that stat.
Right? 46.666 repeating, 46.7. Really? Yeah. Okay, I'll take that. 0 for 0 fourth down. We didn't need it. Great. 2 for 2 in the red zone. Great. 1 for 1 field goals. Great. So all the little things that were done phenomenally. Okay. The O-line, especially with regards to the rush to get 164 yards against this Ole Miss defense, phenomenal. This front four for Ole Miss is legit, right? They were giving up 79 yards of rushing a game, 80 yards.
Yeah, I believe it was right around 80. I'd have to go back and look, but it was low.
Yeah. I thought I had it here, but either way, for the
I think it was. I think you're right. I think it was like 79.9. I believe that's correct.
Right. So great job there. DJ, again, for some of the balls deep that we thought they could have completed, you saw some were covered up. You saw some of the patterns were a little bit vanilla. We gave up 3 sacks. But that's okay. That's okay. It was well contained and well deserved. But here's the other thing too. Badger, 5 receptions, 87 yards. DK, 3 receptions, 54 yards, 41 yards on 1 reception, like you mentioned. Yep. A great dive and catch and scoop and secure to get that ball downfield. And that's what secured, right? The go-ahead touchdown.
Yes,
with Montrell and Wildcat. So that was phenomenal. Great to see Jaden Baugh out in the flat catching the ball and taking it in. Jaquavion Frazier's a name that people might not know. He's been in the program several years.
Like
great
7.
ball, great catch. Yeah, he might be on the Chris Farley plan from from Tommy Boy, right? It's like, hey, a lot of people go to school for 7 years, Richard. Yeah, they're called doctors.
That's right.
Either way, that's fine. But here's the other thing too, right? Another game in which you get outpassed, you get completely obliterated on the offensive side of the football with regards to total offense, 464 yards to only 344, and you come out with a win. True, we needed to see more out of the offense. We needed to see more in a couple different facets of the game with the vertical passing game, the deep ball, as we mentioned. But guess what? It still came through. It was enough and effective and efficient enough to get the dub with great complementary football from the defense. So I'll just leave that for the offensive segment there, B.
I like it. I like it. No, it's a very fair breakdown. Maybe a hair less harsh than mine, but still gets the
Yeah.
point across. Still gets the point across. And I think that is that, really could have and should have really had some more, but it was enough to get the job done, and it got a win. And I think, but I think in fairness, the reason that happened is what we're about to talk about, and that is something that I'm very excited to talk about, and that's defense in Gator bait. And let's get it. Go for it.
Let's get it, my man. All right. So, Gator bait. This defense showed up again. So,
Yeah,
let's
they
talk
did.
about Mr. Dart's QBR. As B mentioned, 100 and up is good. Anything under 100, meh. Now, Jackson Dart, and let me go over the numbers here real quick. Jackson Dart did throw for 323 yards. Okay. Two
Yep.
touchdowns, but also 2 picks, 4 sacks, 24 for 41. That equals a QBR of not as high as you would think, 77.78. Huh. Very mediocre, Jackson. Put the cape down, or the bandana, whatever it is you wear on your head. Yards per carry, 4.03. Manageable. Here's the thing. This defense did a lot of unique things. We talk about bend, don't break in big ways.
Yeah.
And
this was a very bend don't break.
Right? Extremely bend. All right. First thing is, people know this guy that they've got, Pig East, okay? And
Yes.
they bring him in on special plays. Coming into this game, do you remember the number B? He was 12 for 12.
12 for 12 in short yardage, either goal to go
Situation.
or first down to go, whatever.
Bingo. 12 for 12. What did he finish in this game, B? I don't know if you know.
It was 3 for 5 the last time I looked, but I think it may have ended up like 3 for 6. I don't know.
You are correct, sir. 3 for 6.
That's
and
phenomenal.
Not to mention what that happened. The first 4th and 1 play stopped by a true freshman in Miles Graham.
Yeah, buddy.
Miles
He got him again on the last one too.
Okay, he did. And then after that, Cam Jackson took a swipe at him, and Cam Jackson stopped him, and then Graham again. Miles Graham, come get some flowers, because you filled in for Pup, and Pup, we know, has a big bite, and that's a big gap to fill, and you did a great job, kid. A phenomenal job.
Graham looks legit, man.
Oh, absolutely. Guess what, B? He's got that dog in him. Bottom line.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Bottom line. Okay. The other thing I'd like to say is given, I'm going to point out a couple things here. The first touchdown given up, first of all, perfect throw by Jackson Dart. And I mean,
phenomenal throw.
Perfect. Was Bryce a little late on that? Sure. He little late for safety help, about 5 yards off. It was what it was, but perfect throw. And I never want to see a guy go down, but Harris going down really limited their vertical game a lot.
It did for sure.
Right. Lee on Ole Miss's second touchdown, right in the middle of the field, 4 defenders. Of those 4 defenders, one was 2.5 yards away, 3 yards away, 4 yards away, and 5 yards away. Between that throw, the first touchdown where Thornton was late over the top, and the second touchdown to Lee, right in the middle of the field, the 2 big mistakes outside of some of the other explosive plays given up, right? Because from explosive play standpoint, we gave up 4 explosive runs and 9 explosive passing plays.
Yeah, and I just want to take a second on that second touchdown to Lee that you're talking about. So what happened there was we nickel blitzed that. So Sharif was his man in coverage, or his assignment in coverage. I don't know if it was man, right? And he nickel blitzed, and Dart read it immediately. And whoever was supposed to backfill that coverage, and I don't know who it was, you'd have to have the all 22 to tell, but whoever was supposed to backfill that coverage, whichever safety, whether it was Thornton or Castell or maybe even a corner, I don't know. The way that we play the back end, it could have been a multitude of things, right? Because it should have been a zone if we were going to, if his man is coming on a blitz, you fill it in the back with a zone, right? So probably a safety, but I don't know. And somebody messed that up, right? Somebody didn't close fast enough. He was on Castell's side.
Yeah.
Castell has a tendency not to close fast enough. That's my
You're not
guess,
wrong.
but I can't swear to you that was where that was. It's possible that Thornton was actually supposed to come down. I don't know, right? We
Well,
can't know
18.
stuff like
Mhm.
that, especially when we're not getting the all 22 to see it. So I'm just going to say that what happened there could have been blown coverage, could have been, a missed assignment, right, type of thing, or it could have just been somebody that didn't react fast enough, when they knew what they're supposed to do and they just didn't do it quick enough. I don't know. So I thought I'd call that out because that was a weird play where it looked like somebody, got wide open in the middle of the defense like you were describing. But the reason that happened was because we nickel blitzed, which I didn't love in that scenario anyway.
No, not at
I'm going to
all.
put that more really on schematics than the players on that one, even if somebody did, mess up. I didn't like that play design, quite frankly. But anyway, sorry,
So
that's
if
me
you
getting off on a
no,
tangent.
no, but that was my point. If you look at the scheme,
Yep.
nickel blitzing and corner blitzing, we should not do. Period. Period.
Not against
Because
that team, and
no,
not against any team really that's running. We did that against Miami beginning of the
Miami.
season and talked about it, right? Anybody that's running 4-5
Exactly.
wide, we need to get off that stuff.
So you would think we learned our lesson with Miami, right? And Dart is a dual threat QB. He's got
Yep.
weapons. Hey, and then to be honest with you, looking back at the film, don't quote me on this, B, but I want to say 7 and 18 were late. That's Bridges and Thornton. So
Could
that's
be.
what I was thinking. In coverage, we couldn't recover after that. Okay.
Yep.
The other thing I'm going to call out is Jackson Dart rushing in the middle of the field. No QB
Yep.
spy. No
Yep.
spy, no contain, just here's 13 yards and here's 17 yards respectively, right?
Yep. And more. He had a 35-yarder on one.
Correct. And then the other one, the other big one, right, 30 plus yards. So that was the head scratcher. As good as we did there, the explosive plays are what did it. Now, I'm going to switch gears again, people, just like the ADHD in me. Ole Miss averaged 40.7 points per game.
Yep.
I'll say that again, 40.7 points per game, held them to tying a season low of 17.
Yep.
Okay. Not to mention the defense, we out-pressured their defense. 15 pressures, sacked Dart 4 times. Phenomenal. Yep. Ole Miss, 3 for 14 on first down, on third down.
Yeah, that's amazing.
What? 3 for 14, 21.4%. When this is a team on third down was averaging in the 40s.
Yeah.
Phenomenal there. Okay. Ole Miss struggled. Ole Miss, similar problem to LSU last week, right? We did get some help, some drop passes, some missed passes, some poor play calling on the Ole Miss sideline. Can I say that? I can say that. I can say that.
I think you can.
Especially with Pegues. You got 330 plus pounds. You're trying to run him on the edge to beat the edge. Why did I just go in the middle? Okay. Some of those catches.
Well, I think maybe they were a little scared of a 435 pounder in the middle, perhaps.
I'm sure they were. But at the end of the day, I thought they had a greater percentage going up the middle, right? Oh, well. They had some very catchable balls. Dart wasn't as accurate as he normally is, but they're very catchable balls. They dropped probably 6 passes. I didn't count 6 passes.
5. The official is 5. I saw it on statbroadcast.com. Had it at 5.
Yep. Thank you. There you go. Right. Phenomenal. So outside of that, Ole Miss struggled to finish drives. Okay. Let me give you a breakdown based off the drive chart, B. Okay. 6 plays, 12 yards, punt. 9 plays, 69 yards, turnover on downs. 7 plays, 58 yards, missed field goal. 5 plays, 23 yards, punt. 13 plays, 65 yards, turnover on downs.
That's wild. That's wild. Yep. That's how the game started for them.
Yep. 3 plays, 4 yards, punt. 4. That was the first 3 and out, by the way, late in the third quarter. 4 plays, 29 yards, punt. 8 plays, 39 yards, interception. 5 plays, 18 yards, interception. Wow.
So that's obviously the non-scoring drives, but still.
Correct. And in between there, you scatter 7 plays, 75 yards, touchdown. 5 plays, 55 yards, touchdown. And then 7 plays, 27 yards, field goal. That's it, folks. That's it. That's it. Forcing 2, forcing 4 fourth down situations. 2 stops in the 4th down, 2 interceptions. And I know it's technically special teams, but a muff punt to regain field position, phenomenal. 0 points on 3 red zone drives for a top 5 offense in the nation. 0 points, 3 red zone drives. There's more I can go on for. I'm just going to stop it there.
Yep.
Defense, great definition of bend, don't break. B, what do you have for the Gator bait section, my man?
No, good stuff, man. Really good breakdown there. I love all the stat work in there too. I think that really does a good job of kind of displaying what we're trying to get at and talk to here, because this was it was a very unique performance in a lot of ways, but I love kind of how you juxtaposed one versus the other, because that's very much what I wanted to talk to too here is there's all this yardage, right? There's all this yardage, almost 500 yards given up, right, of total offense. And yet you only allow 17 points to one of the most prolific scoring teams in the country. And that's the story of the game, right? That's the story of the game. Now, you effectively took the ball away, right? You count turnover on downs, right, as you mentioned, right? And we won't count a missed field goal because that's not the same thing. But you do turnover on downs plus 2 picks plus a muff punt. That's 5 turnovers. That's effectively 5 turnovers.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We don't count it that way. It doesn't get scored that way in the stat sheet, but it's effectively 5 turnovers. And that's massive, right? That's massive. And that's another piece of this game. That's kind of like a hidden stat, right? Because really, turnover wise, we were +2. They had 3, we had 1. But really, we were +4 because those other 2, they count the same kind of way. Field position wise, maybe not, but that's still no points to end a drive. And it didn't end with a punt, right?
Bingo.
So kind of interesting there. So the interesting thing here is this is like the definition of the kind of win that I talked about us, or really we talked about us. I don't want to take credit there, but we talked about this being possible as a way we could get a win, or maybe more than one, before the season started. We saw this as being something that we thought could happen from what we saw in the potential of this defense, and knowing that our offense was kind of, this is obviously when we still thought Mertz was going to be running things, and we thought the offense was, they do okay. They kind of do what they do, right? They'd get what they'd get and score, something probably in the mid-20s, right? But we'd be very competitive even against a good team, because this defense is just not going to let you have an inch. And I really thought that was possible. Like, I thought this team had, at least on paper, the capability of doing this. Now, obviously, the season did not start that way, but we've just seen this progression ever since that first bye of this defense just getting better and better and better. And I got to tell you, this was the culmination of that. Despite the yardage, it didn't matter, because they made the plays when they needed to make them, even giving up the yardage. And being able to do that, considering the injuries, it's phenomenal. What a day. What a day for the defense. Well, I may have had critiques for the offense, right? You're not going to hear me give them for the defense. You're just not. I don't care that it wasn't perfect. I don't care that we blew a coverage or 2, which we did. I don't care that there were times when we got beat in zone. I don't care. This defense played as well as any defense could have, considering the personnel we had available and the opponent we were playing, period. Hands down. That's all I got. I could not have asked more. At the end of the day, this is a college football program, right? And they are playing, in some cases, with third-string guys out there on defense, or at the best, second string in a lot of places. You have basically strung together, pun intended, after saying all that stuff about the second and third string, a defensive unit out there, especially in the secondary. And yet, you've just done an absolutely outstanding job here, right? At the end of the day, as I already mentioned, the job of a defense is not to allow the other team to score points. We talk about all these stats with yardages and explosives given up and all this stuff, because they typically lead to points. But at the end of the day, the job is don't let them score. And again, against, as Randy mentioned, One of the best offenses in the country. What were they ranked coming in? Do we even have the ranking number? Was it 2, 3, something like that for scoring offense? I don't know if we have the actual ranking, but it was 40.7 points a game, as he mentioned.
Yeah,
we held him. What's that?
I'll take a look.
All right, cool. Yeah, if we've got it, it's fine. If we don't, it's fine. But we held him to 2 TDs and a field goal. That's just outstanding. It's just outstanding. So, again, to be objective from an execution standpoint, right? If you just look at execution, I will say we didn't do the best, as you mentioned, at containing Dart in the pocket, right? No spy, yes, but also we sometimes let the pocket kind of open up and give him those windows. And we were in man more than once, right, when that happened, which is a green light for him to run. I would have liked to see that be better. But even with that, the yards per carry was still only at 4, right? Which means even overall, the run defense, including that, was still really good. So I'm not complaining about it. I told you, I have no complaints. I have no gripes. I have no critiques. This was outstanding. Positionally speaking, secondary was solid. Again, yes, they had some gaps, but it was not, considering it was really good. I loved some of the legal, keyword legal, big hits to break up passes. Let's go. Castell, I'll give you some props on that first one. Wow, you rocked that dude. Absolutely rocked him, and he dropped that ball. That was phenomenal. And then Sharif, I believe, had a big hit as well later in the game and got another one. Linebackers, once again, played very well against both the run and the pass. You mentioned Graham. A nice day, little quiet from a stat sheet standpoint, but I thought Jaden Robinson did a lot of stuff that was not on the stat sheet. Again, James was solid in this game. He looked better again, just moving around as he needed to. And then I wrote this last week and I didn't change it. This part of it anyway. D-line, D-line, D-line. Absolute clinic. Caleb Banks, co-defensive line player of the week for the SEC. So that's 2 guys I've mentioned on defense with defensive player of the week honors. Yes. Pretty impressive stuff. Who was great last week, as we talked about, was even better this week. Put on a show. 2.5 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, and 4 QB hurries in addition to those sacks. Are you kidding me? From an interior line position, is he think he's Ndamukong Suh out there? What is going on? Those numbers are ludicrous for an interior defensive lineman. Those are edge rusher numbers, not interior defensive line numbers. You're not supposed to get 2.5 sacks playing in the middle of the line. That's not a thing. That's ridiculous, Caleb. What are you doing out there, man? And he repeated, and the repeated stops that we had on 4th down. Again, you mentioned it against, how do you say his last name? You said it. I don't know how to say it.
Oh, Pegues.
Pegues, thank you. Just sensational by D-line linebackers, right? You mentioned it. You just can't say enough about how well this entire unit played. Hats off to the defense. This is what I knew we could do. I knew we could do this. I knew it was there. This game was the proof of that. Again, I don't care about the yards. I don't care about any of it. We allowed 17 points in one of the most prolific scoring teams in college football. Let's go. That is what is up. That is how you do it. That is a clinic. Well done. So with that, I will close my thoughts on defense. Really, really great stuff. And we will move on to a less positive portion of the show, which is, of course, visor throw. But an important part. But an important part, right? It's not as positive, but it's important. So, again, I already talked about it. Not going to go into detail. It's important not to be lulled to sleep by a win and only looking through orange and blue goggles, right? Offensive play design is still a huge problem. Already mentioned it. Not going to beat it to death, especially when you have an advantage against the team you're playing and you don't capitalize on it, right? I said it before. Additionally, play calling is still an issue. So we talked about this maybe getting a little better at times with Napier. This season, we saw maybe some times where we were like, okay, I don't mind that play call as much, or I don't think that's necessarily the worst thing in the world there. Kind of mentioned last week that we felt the play calling was a little predictable on offense. Oh boy, it was rough this week. Into the first half, almost a minute left. You got a defense that is suspect against the pass. And yet, once again, I swear, if we ever, the one thing, if we ever start a 2-minute drive without a run, that would just be great. That would just be great. Because we start every single one with a run play, and it drives me nuts. And it didn't go well. So what we do? We just ran out the clock. Why are we yet again so conservative? We have talked about this time and time again. This is a team that scores points theoretically. Again, hats off to the defense, but we're lucky that this didn't end up like the Tennessee game, even if our defense was better. But you cannot know. You cannot know. You are tied at the half with a minute to go, and you're going to get the ball against a prolific scoring team. You have got to try to get points in that situation. Not trying to get points is inexcusable in that situation. I'm not saying you have to pull out all the stops and go run and gun and trying to get a touchdown, but you got to try to get a field goal. You got to try to get a field goal. It's a free three. You're getting the ball back. What are we doing? Drives me nuts. It's so conservative and it's dumb. It's losing football is what it is. That's not how you win games. That's how you lose games. It's not intelligent play calling. I'm sorry. Again, it's not personal. Said it before, say it again. I think Billy's a great guy. He clearly has built some great stuff with his team, but that is not the right way to do it. It's just not. I don't care. Nobody's going to convince me otherwise. Last but not least, clock management at the end of the game. I do not care what is happening unless your team is literally halfway like off the field and I don't know, falling down because they're all injured, where you'd have a timeout automatically anyway, so that's kind of a moot point. You don't call a timeout with a running clock for the other team when they don't have any. Are you kidding me? Could have cost us the game. Didn't, but could have. And then, of course, there was a false start snap that should have been a 10-second runoff that we didn't get because he called a timeout. I was nearly breaking things. I mean, it was close, man. I was losing it. Absolutely losing it. Could not believe he called a timeout there. How do you call a timeout in any running clock situation for the other team when they do not have any? Make them figure it out. Don't give them a free pass. Ever. It's just 101. It's mind-numbing to me what he does in some of these situations. That's all I got. What's your visor throw?
So, interestingly enough, in my visor throw, it is opposite of what we had for Ho My.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. And for the record, those of you who may have heard B up front say that we really don't compare notes before we go live.
We do not compare notes.
Do not compare notes in any way, shape, or form. We like to keep it natural and raw and flowing and gives a nice element to the pod. To that end, first note under visor throw. Within 1 minute left in the first half, there was zero push downfield.
Yeah.
Zero push, zero execution. Take a shot, take a stab, take a leap, take something, but we go in to halftime. I get it. We're getting the ball back in the second half. We're getting the ball back in the third quarter. To B's point, you are going up against a top 5 offense in the nation. Okay? To that end, number 4 in the nation, averaging 40 points a game, and number 2 in the nation, right, over 365 passing yards a game, number 2 in the nation in total offense, 539.5 yards a game. Okay. Say that because I felt like coming out of the third quarter, we came out kind of flat, almost like we didn't have a lot of momentum. Oh, we didn't have momentum finishing the half.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a really good point, too.
So how do we start the third quarter?
Flat.
Negative play. Oh, okay. Pass, push. Oh, bubble. Oh, negative yardage. Wait, we're back to what's going on here? Why is the ball not going north? The ball's going south, huh? That's how we started the third quarter, and that's the reason why. No momentum to finish the second quarter. That push, that edge, that hungriness that we needed against the number 9 ranked team in the nation wasn't there. But defense, great job. Bend, don't break. Bailed us out. Awesome. Third quarter play calling and adaptability and the evolution that we thought we could see towards the end of the season here with this offense, just not existent. So there's my other point. And then my last point. Okay, so here's the thing. Two perspectives on this. First, I agree with you 100%, B. You never call a timeout in a running clock when the other team has 0 timeouts. Okay? Outside of that, I get it. He didn't anticipate the false start for the 10-second runoff, but don't call the time out. Your defense is in good shape. Your defense is holding its own. If anything, you put it on Jackson Dart to crap the bed, and he did. But that's the thing. Just don't stop it. Keep it going. That's your friend. Keep it going. And I'll stop there.
Yep. And I honestly left something out, but I'll leave it alone. I mentioned earlier that series that we had after the first Thornton pick and how pedestrian that was, but it just goes to the same point.
Put that right
so there's
in
no
there.
need to belabor it.
Yes.
But all right, that's all you got?
That's it, bud.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, and I think it just all kind of comes back to the same points, but they just become more and more frustrating at times. You know, when the issues kind of don't change, but the way that they rear their head in certain times, you know, really can really just come out and cause problems. But let's get back to some more fun stuff. Let's talk about the recruiting hotbed that is Central North Florida. Give me some recruiting thoughts, my friend.
Yeah, but hey, the week before, right, we went from 32nd to 27th, right, nationally, 11 prospects, right? And now, check this out. We go from 27th to 19th, okay?
Yes,
we got
sir.
50% in state. The only catch is we sacrificed a little bit on the blue chip side. We went from 55% blue chip to 44% blue chip, but that's okay. Daniel Pierre-Louis, who we thought would be a really good flip out of Loxahatchee, who committed to FSU over a month ago, did in fact flip. So great flip there. Jari Medlock out of Georgia, right? 3-star, 6'5", 275-pound. Offensive tackle, flip from Cincinnati today.
Yep.
Cruz Tankara out of League City, Texas, wide receiver, 6'3", 195, 3-star wide receiver. Flip from Arizona today. I love his social media post, posing with DJ at the end of the game. So he posed with Lagway, and guess what? He said he would love to be catching some passes thrown by Mr. Lagway. We would like to see that too.
Yes, indeed.
Then we've got Ty Jackson out of Seminole Ridge. Again, that's Loxahatchee, right? Teammates with Daniel Pierre-Louis, 6'2", 175-pound lineman, 4-star flip from USC today. So phenomenal job there.
That's a big one. That's a big one.
Huge one. Huge one. The other one that I'm still looking to see flip, B, between you and I think another good shot that we have, the 5-star cornerback out of right now committed to Ohio State, Naeem Offord. I really think that we have a good shot of flipping him, but that's all I got for hatchlings, B. What about you?
Yeah. So a few things there. So we were supposed to have potentially a couple receivers again this weekend that didn't end up coming. And I'm blanking on the name of the Oregon commit off the top of my head right now that was supposed to come back this weekend. And I really thought getting him back was going to be huge. And then he didn't show. And I apologize for not knowing the name. God, it's gone right out of my head. It's I believe his initials are DJ as well. I think I know that, but I just can't recall the name.
Oh, I know. Decorian Moore.
Nope, that's not it. It's a 5-star. I think he might be out of Texas, but he's committed to Oregon. I just can't get it off the top of my head. But anyway, regardless, It's all good. He may not be out of Texas. I may have the state wrong, but anyway, it's neither here nor there because I thought he was coming back after last week when he was there for LSU with French, and then I knew French early on wasn't coming because he ended up going back to Texas. So there was some talk he might, but then he ended up going back to Texas, and it looks like that probably isn't going to work out, unfortunately. But this other one I thought really had a chance to because I thought he was going to come back. But then he ended up not coming. I don't know where he ended up going this week, but I don't think that one's dead yet. But it's not necessarily trending as much as I wanted it to be if he had to come 2 weeks in a row, obviously, and come for this game too. So, but the fact that he was even looking at it and then we got this win, I think it's still potentially in play. So we'll see what happens. At the end of the day, the class rising as much as it has up to 19th is obviously huge, but we only have a week and a half, right? National Signing Day is early this year. It's on the 4th. We again had multiple commits in attendance, but not as many as I wanted, as I mentioned. Still several more flips possible, but we've got to get some blue chips to flip. You talked about the ratio. I don't care as much about the ratio, but if we want this class to start rising more now and get to potentially be top 10 or close to it, you're going to need some more blue chip guys. It's going to happen to get it to rise now because now we're obviously competing with the upper echelon classes. And to move the needle now, you can't just add bodies. And I'm not calling these guys bodies because I like who we brought in. I like everybody today. I think it was very strong. But to really move the needle now, you've got to start getting some more of that top end talent. And frankly, this class just needs a little more of it. It's a little lacking. We only have 2 top 100 guys, only 6 top 300, which not that that's bad, but it needs a little more, right? We probably need at least two more top 100, and probably 3 or 4 more top 300 to really round this thing out. If we could pull that off, this thing would really move up. And that's what I'd love to see happen. But I don't know. But then again, maybe because there is so much buzz. I'm calling it the recruiting beehive right now in Gainesville. So let's see what happens. We'll see how it goes. All right, moving on. Pride of the Sunshine. I'm really looking forward to this segment yet again. It's about becoming my favorite segment of the pod, which is wild. I love that we have it. I love that we have it for this season. I don't know what could be a better segment. So we have talked a lot about the Gators not being able to maintain momentum under Napier. It's been a problem, right? It's been the roller coaster, up, down, can't sustain it. We put something quality out there and then they can't hold it up. Well, you can put that to bed now. I'm not saying that it's a done deal, it'll never happen again, but certainly that narrative of not being able to do it is gone, right? Clearly they can do it now because this team did not only maintain momentum of playing at a high level, right? That could have happened even with a loss in this game, quite frankly, right? Nobody expected them to come away with this. We were 13.5-point underdogs when the line closed, by the way. It just kept going up all week, which is hilarious. I about knew we were going to cover that, by the way. But not only did they play at a high level, they did it to such an extent that they pulled off back-to-back upsets of ranked SEC opponents, which, if you haven't seen the tweets and stuff on that, it hasn't happened since 2018. And that includes, right, our best year, theoretically, that we've had in the last 8 or 10 years, which was 2020. So put that in perspective. That simply does not happen, especially with the injuries we have, especially with the drama that we've had throughout this season, and especially in the beginning of it, without an exceptional culture. It is palpable on this team. It continues to be talked about in the locker room, the local media, and more nationally as well. And I love it. I love the attention that the culture of this team is getting. I think it is, 1, incredibly well earned and deserved, and 2, phenomenal that it's getting this much press. I think it's really cool because it doesn't get talked about that much, right? It's not something you hear stories about. You don't hear that much about, oh, what a great culture program this, maybe Dabo had some talk about it in the day. He probably did for quite a while there, but it doesn't resonate, especially not in the NIL era. Talk to me about teams you're hearing culture stories about. You're not. So this is phenomenal. We have valued this a long time, as I kind of already mentioned, as an important piece of a well-built program. And I am absolutely thrilled that it's had such an impact this year. I am still not changing my stance that it is not enough on its own. But when you add it to an all-world QB and some great defensive play, it will get you a long way. see Saturday afternoon in the Swamp. That's my thoughts. What you got, bud?
Man, so I love that this is becoming one of your favorites, if not your favorite segment. I felt like when we put the agenda for this pod together, we had to say something about this because we know from 05 to 11, we did a lot of winning. A lot of winning.
Yep.
Came at a certain cost. You know, it wasn't the prettiest, right? Off the field.
Yeah. No.
So, again, just calling that spade a spade.
Yeah, don't let Swamp Kings fool you for anybody who doesn't know.
There you go. Exactly. But by the way, Dog Tales will be being released in 12 more years. Mark my words. Anyways, having that been said, a couple things. 13.5-point underdog. Second biggest upset by the Gators. Okay. Dating back 1979. 45 seasons. Ben and I weren't alive. We'll just say that. B, you said it, back-to-back wins versus ranked opponents for the first time since 2018. Loved every minute of that. Okay. Tennessee fans. Yes, there's a segment here for Tennessee fans. Tennessee fans doing the Gator chomp when they saw the score. First, let me just make this very clear. I will never sing Rocky Top. Never. The same way you'll never hear me barking because I'm a grown man and I don't bark like a dog. But to that end, this is what we love about college football. Amidst NIL, TV money, greed, the business, that was beautiful. That was college football at its purest, seeing what transpired in the Swamp and then what transpired in Neyland after that score was posted. Kudos, Tennessee fans. You're welcome for the opportunity. Now, don't go crap the bed. No, I'm kidding. Dunking on the Ole Miss basketball hoop, loved every second of it. Loved it. It's one thing to get a signature win and filling back up the Swamp and remembering that only Gators get out alive. But it's another thing to have back-to-back wins, top 25 teams. Phenomenal. To put some things into perspective, Napier beats the guy who was supposedly a top candidate for his job.
Yeah, it's funny.
Right? So I would like to say hashtag, smiling emoji with sunglasses. I'll just leave it at that. I saw some other posts that I kind of want to shout out here. Billy, and I thought this was actually genius. Billy went from struggling to open a water bottle to opening a can on Ole Miss. I thought that was pretty good. I thought that was really good, actually.
That's awesome.
Yeah, whoever said that, I wish I can take credit, but I cannot. So I'll just say that. The Go DJ chant, it's widely heard throughout the stadium. And I love DJ's position on it. It's not about me. It's not about any one person. It's great. He kind of smiled, he chuckled, but at the end of the day, it's not about any one person. It's about our job as a team and what we do as a team.
Yeah, wow. His post-game press conference was dynamite.
It was, wasn't it? I loved Napier's disposition on his interview at the end of the game with Molly McGrath. You can tell his voice, he was a little bit cracked up. And I can only imagine the relief coming off of him, knowing that he has told his kids since day one the things that they're going to focus on, building a culture of accountability, a culture of learning, right? A culture of integrity, and a culture of character. And when you couple that with hope and belief, those are extremely powerful things. And as we know, and we have called for, sometimes, let me rephrase that, a lot of times it is not easy when the win column looks the way it looks, when the record looks the way it looks, when the optics don't look that good, when the product on the field does not pass the eye test. There's been noise and noise and noise. And I love what Coach said. He He's built a little differently. He can block that stuff out. He has abilities. He understands the job. He understands the disposition. He understands the gripes. He can block those things out. He can look past it. But he's got 18, 19, 20-year-olds that live in a digital age that might not be able to block it out quite as easy. And what he had to do to get them to buy into each other, to playing for each other and believing and hoping, I fundamentally is one of the greatest things I've ever seen. Because when you see a team that lost the way they lost against Miami and against Florida West, for most, not all, but probably most other schools in a big environment like this, high pressure situation, that coach loses that school, loses that team, and the rest of the season, you might as well cover what Vegas said at 4.5. And they didn't. They didn't pack it up. They didn't pack it up. Kudos to that. And talk about playing with an immense amount of pride. To your point, B, that's why we have this segment in the pod, and that's why we love talking about this team in that way. We get it. There's inefficiencies on offense. There's a lot of opportunity there that we can do. To B's point, the opportunity is putting your team in a better position to succeed, not having to worry about relying on the defense, the backing of this, right? Putting in a better position. We'll get to that. But at the end of the day, super proud of this team. Great job, Coach Napier, for keeping the glue for this team together and getting a little bit of that monkey to inch off your back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As much criticism as I might have for certain things, I cannot give enough praise for this. And not that my opinion means anything, but there you go. So, all right, moving on. Talk officiating. Little move back, you suck. Yeah, I'll keep it quick. Didn't love it. Not the greatest officiating in this game. Better than last week. Because that was rough. But that isn't saying much. Is what my note is here. That it was better than last week. I do appreciate that their reviews were good. They got the targeting call right. They got the incomplete on DeJohn's pick right. They got the incomplete pass on Trey Harris's catch that they ruled a catch right. Their replays were spot on. That was very good, and they reviewed the appropriate plays right. There wasn't any weirdness about when to and not to review. So those things were very, very good. Hats off on that. However, still had some issues. Late hit penalty on Dart. Absolute garbage. He was not even out of bounds when he was contacted. No part of him had contacted out of bounds. He had not given himself up. He was still in the field of play. I don't know what that was. I guess Ole Miss talked him into throwing that flag. I don't know. It was not a too hard a hit on the quarterback. I don't know. I got nothing. That was a terrible call. This one, this just bugs me. This is probably me. You can give me your take on it. They called PI on Castell, which was PI. No question. He got there early. Hit the receiver before the ball got there. But they didn't call it when Trell got hit early on his slant route. Now, it was more bang-bang on Trell. It was closer. Castell's was obvious. I won't say Trell's wasn't obvious. Like, it wasn't near as obvious, but he clearly got there before the ball. And this happened last week with DK too, and they didn't call it. And it seems like unless you're there so early that the guy's like on the ground before the ball even gets into the vicinity, they're not going to call it. So I guess we need to start like hitting guys, half second before the ball gets there, and we'll get away with it every time. I mean, is that what we're saying, officials? Because apparently we're not flagging it unless you just get there like a minute and a half before the play occurs. I don't know. I got nothing. If he's there early and flag it. No double standards. Can't stand it. Drives me nuts. Last thing, because I said I was going to make it quick, and I really haven't. Multiple holding calls. Some of them very blatant, not flagged on Ole Miss. Once again, very close to the officiating in this game causing an effect on the outcome, which will make me lose my mind if it happens. And fortunately, we didn't go there again. But again, me losing my mind doesn't really matter, but it's still going to happen. So that's what I got. Really to break it all down, just didn't love it. Wasn't the best, but also wasn't the worst. So there you go. What's your take?
I got you, B. First of all, Daniel Gautreau. I've had issues with this white hat for a long time. He and I have a history. He just doesn't know it. But,
I love that.
Yeah, Florida, 5 penalties, 44 yards. Ole Miss, 4 penalties, 45 yards. For those of you who don't know, Florida's tied top 46 in the nation with fewest penalties per game. Yay. So we're right in that season average, about 5.2. So that is what it is. Here's the thing. I agree with you. The targeting call review, quick review, the incomplete on Harris's pass where he got injured, right? Had to come out of the game. Feel bad for him. Obviously, he re-aggravated that hip. But hey, one weapon down. We're not going to complain about it.
Right.
Got those right. The late hit on Dart. I think it's one of those things where go back to the game, look at the blindside block that was called on Trell, okay, in the Mississippi State game. It looked worse on the field than it actually, so the optics were bad. That's why I think they felt like it needed to be called, because the optics looked so bad. The impact was so much. But bang, bang, it was late, whatever. Or I'm sorry, not late. I felt like he hit him inbounds compared to out of bounds, but that was what it was.
Yeah,
the optics looked bad. Correct. That's what I'm saying. The optics look so bad that they felt like they just had to call it, and so be it. And it's a quarterback, and whatever. You got to protect the quarterback. Here's the thing, man. When it comes to the PI stuff, I agree. If he's early, if he's not early, how early does he have to be there? The main thing that we try and have officials say is, listen, if you're going to call a PI, especially when it comes to interfering with the receiver's ability to catch the ball, how early is too early? It depends on the advantage created. But at the end of the day, if you're going to call it early, you got to call it early on both sides. You can't call it early here, but not call it early here. And so that comes down to subjectivity, them being humans, and lack of consistency. That's it. Yes, it should have been called. It should have been.
Fair enough.
Because it was called for Ole Miss, right?
Right, exactly. And again, his was worse, but
it was by another half second or two. But okay, fine.
yeah.
Okay, half second times 2, 1 second.
5. I don't know. He was very early, but still, nonetheless,
extremely early to the point where it shoved his shoulder. Johnson had to turn his shoulder, turn the entire upper body, so it changed his disposition and his angle to catch the ball. Yeah, should have been called.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So,
and then outside of that, what I called, or what when I counted 4 holding penalties on Ole Miss that were not called on the offensive line, and actually 2 on Florida that were not called. So 4 minus 2 plus 2 that should have been called on Ole Miss, but it was what it was. Nevertheless, that's that.
Well, I love that you're also counting the ones on Florida. That's good. That's what we should be doing here. And
I had to.
Good for you for spotting those. No, it's the right thing to do. That's the right thing to do. The point of this is to evaluate the officials regardless, not just how we did or didn't like their calls against UF. So that is the whole point of that segment. It is not to just be biased against one side or the other. So, and we have had segments, by the way, where we thought they were more pro Gators, for the record, than we've talked about it. So that just hasn't happened a lot this year. So anyway, moving along. All right, let's wrap this thing up. What are your thoughts? Where are we at? Give me your state of the program, if you will.
So you're saying there's a chance. It's really nice to know that you're going back to a bowl.
Yes.
Not for the fact of a crappy bowl, whether it's the Gasparilla Bowl or the Honky Tonk Bowl it doesn't matter. A bowl is a bowl.
Birmingham Bowl.
Birmingham Bowl, it's almost like, the Bubblegum Shrimp Company. Is it shrimp Creole? Is it shrimp salad? Is it shrimp stew? Is it whatever? It's a bowl. It's shrimp. Okay. To know that we've solidified that and not having to wait till the last game of the year. Great. Good. Wonderful. No yelling on the bus. No, I'm kidding. Florida State, I'm looking so looking forward to going up to Tallahassee and taking care of business. Florida State currently at 2-9. Their last 2 in season, well, we know they went 3-9 in Norvell's first season in 2020, and it looks like they've done nothing but regressing, right? The other thing is to know that we had to go back to 1975 when they went 3-8. Okay, 1-10 in 1974, 0-11 in 1973. So Florida State's going to have 2 wins in a season and 10 losses for the first time ever. Just 2 wins, right?
It is going to. I like the definitiveness of that.
I'm
It is
just
decided.
saying, I want the smoke. Go ahead, tribe. Send the smoke. We ended the season in a we're ending in the season trending up because we all know how last year ended. We did not expect to drop 5 in a row last season, period.
No. But
right?
I would also argue we certainly didn't expect to potentially win 3 in a row here. So.
And no, but what a welcome surprise, not to mention in a team that's laden by the injury bug. Go away.
Yeah.
If we say injury bug 3 times, does it go away kind of like when it appears? Is that the deal? I don't know. Maybe it's a Beetlejuice thing. I have no idea. But get the hell away. Seriously. Really good opportunity to finish the year, finish strong. Recruiting is picked up. Again, people, regardless of whether you want Billy here, you didn't want Billy here, you wanted Jed Fish here, you wanted Franklin here, you wanted Kiffin here, Billy's here, and it really did 2 main things for recruiting. It stabilized it and solidified what we're going to see coming in the doors, and that's a great thing. That's a great thing, especially with this freshman class here. So I love the fact that recruiting is rolling, flipping, whatever you want to call it. I love the fact
flipping is right.
Right? I love the fact we're finishing the season on a more than likely 3-game win streak. Yep. I love the fact that we're going to be at least 7-5. If I remember our preseason pod, B, you called for 7-5. I called for 8-4. Right? Yep. I love those things. And I love the fact that Florida State emptied out the farm to field the past 2 seasons teams, okay? And they're going to have to go back to the drawing board in 25 and start from scratch. I love the fact that Ole Miss, in all that they do with their collective, they dumped $13 to $14 million on the field this year because this was their year to win. They had a 60% increase from 2023 in NIL funds. And they're not even going to make the playoff. Right?
In all likelihood.
Right, Jim Mora? Right. They're not going to make the playoff. So I love where we're headed. Is there a lot of work to be done? Yes, there's a lot of work to be done. But Billy is cut out for the task. Do we get an OC? Oh, Santa, please. Is that the wish? Is that the direction?
Please.
Who knows? But
B, I still don't think it's likely, but I'd love to have it.
I know. But B, I don't know what else to say except for things are on the up and up. We know there are things to fix, but man, if we can finish the season on a 3-game win streak, this will right a lot of, not all of them, it won't correct it, but it will help take care of a lot of the strife that we suffered this season and a lot of the noise surrounding an extremely hot seat at different points of the season for Coach Billy Napier.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what I'm about to kind of talk about is probably a week premature, but because, as you mentioned, I'm not going to call it a foregone conclusion because it is a rivalry game, but odds look pretty good. You mentioned it earlier. We called last week the biggest win of Napier's tenure, right? So clearly this one now has to hold that title, at least for the time being. And this team continues to impress me over and over again. They keep raising the bar. We said at the beginning of this season, that this group would need to be very tight-knit and solid to get through the gauntlet of a schedule they had to play, right? We talked about this.
Yes.
And that was before we knew all of this stuff, right? We said just to come out with a semblance of a winning record, right? 7-5, maybe 8-4, whatever. They're going to have to be tough, man, because even good teams are going to lose games against the schedule. And that's hard. It's hard to go through that. It's hard to deal with that and not lose your will, right? Because you're not necessarily playing for the playoff or a New Year's Six bowl, or, you're probably not doing those things. So how do you keep it together and not, just lose your will to play and say, no, well, maybe next year, right? So little did we know that they were going to face a lot more than just the adversity of the schedule, right? They got a lot more heaped on them because of how this thing started, right? Yes. And they still rose to the challenge. even despite all that, and played together as well as any team I can ever remember seeing. With one game left, again, that should be a victory, barring any weird rivalry shenanigans. This is going to be a memorable season. I mean, a memorable season. Even, and that's weird to say about a 7-5 season, right? There are not many memorable 7-5 seasons in my book of Gator football. It's not necessarily as memorable as I thought it would be for the reasons going in, but it's going to be memorable nonetheless, for sure. So those are my thoughts. Again, it might be kind of a week premature. I'll probably just expound on that next week, assuming we do win. But nonetheless, I think it's really going to be interesting to see how this kind of finishes up. So to that end, let's talk some keep it or pitch it.
Yes.
Ole Miss last week, run it down. You went 2-1. I went 1-2, which means we are tied going into the last week of the season, which is remarkable. What a comeback. Don't call it a comeback by Randy here, people, because he was down big just a few weeks ago. So quite the turnaround. Ole Miss was ranked number 2 in the nation, averaging 365.7 yards a game of passing offense. Florida was ranked 92, allowing 236.9. We said we wanted to hold them under 300. We both said, nah, we ain't doing that. Pitched it, and we were right, though it was kind of close. It was only 323. It wasn't crazy over, but we got that one right. That was the only one I got right. Ole Miss ranks 16 in total defense, allowing 309.2. Florida ranks number 80 in total offense at 378.9. Florida will accumulate over 375 yards. I kept it. Randy pitched it. It was close, 344, right? But did not make it. Make it. So nice call on that one. Last but not least, Ole Miss and Florida currently both rank 113 and 114, averaging 27 minutes of time of possession, which really means they are both capable of quick scores, though Ole Miss more so than Florida. Florida will have more explosives than Ole Miss. We really, after the fact, kind of figured out, we didn't talk about this on the pod, that this might actually end up being kind of the key to the game. As it turns out, it wasn't quite the key, but it was close, because if we didn't get as many explosives as we did, I don't think we would have won this game. We did lose this. It was razor thin. They had 13. We had 12. So they had 9 passing, 4 rushing. We had 6 and 6 apiece. But that was what kept us in this, and ultimately kind of what got it done for us. Again, we let them move the ball through the explosives a lot, but then just didn't allow them to score. That was the kind of the key takeaway there. So we both kept that. We were both wrong. So that was your one miss. My second miss. So again, 17 and 16 for the season. So good stuff coming into this week. So let's do it. Let's break it down. Keep it or pitch it for FSU. So FSU ranks 130th in the nation. That's almost dead last. On third down conversion percentage at 27.2, a stellar 27.2. The Gators will hold them to under 27% on third down conversion. That's right. We didn't even consider what our third down defense looks like. We just said we're going to keep them under 27. So keep it or pitch it.
You know what? That 27 is a steep number, but I don't see how they're going to move the ball against this resurgent front four. I'm going to keep it.
Nice. I like it. So this is a strategic pick for me. I am pitching it, but not for the reasons that you think. It's not like I think we're going to allow them to get some big number. I think they're going to have not that many possessions. I think we're going to run the ball so much in this game that we're going to dominate clock, and therefore they're not going to have the ball that much. So if they convert just a handful of these, it could drive the number up to the low 30s. And that's the only reason I'm doing it. That's the only reason I'm keeping it, or excuse me, that I'm pitching it. It's just like a strategic play on this number is the reason I think it's going to happen. But it very well could be under. It very well could be less than that. It's right on. This is one of those kind of crazy ones. You very well may end up being right too. This is one that's kind of a shot in the dark. So, all right.
Yeah, it's tough.
On to the next. Florida ranks 103rd in the nation in total defense, which is not good, but we've had our reasons why that's happened. But again, we didn't look at scoring defense here. We looked at total defense. At 406 yards per game, FSU ranks 131, even worse, in the nation at total. I just love it. At total offense, averaging 273.1 yards per game. The Gators will hold FSU to under 280 total yards. 280. That's a low number. Keep it or pitch it.
I want it to be well under, but I think they're not going to hit the two. It might be closer to 290 or 300, so I will pitch it.
I'm keeping it.
Oh, my.
Again, I think we're playing ball control. I don't think they get the ball that much, and I just don't think they're moving. I've watched this offense a couple of times. I don't even know if you can call it. It's offensive. It's offensive.
Oh, boy.
It's terrible. It is bad. I don't think they're doing it. Not against the way this defense and the way it's been playing. I'm keeping it. All right, last but not least, Florida stinks. Florida stinks. Florida State ranks, it just ran together, but it came out that way. Florida State ranks 105th in rushing defense, allowing 180 point run rushing yards per game. That's a lot. That is a lot. Florida ranks 79th in the nation at 148.8 rushing yards per game, but obviously we've been getting more lately. The Gators will rush for more, or will rush for at least 185 yards per game. So above their average. Keep it or pitch it.
Keeping it.
Yeah, me too. Again, I think we're gonna ball control this thing. I think Napier's gonna see a green light to run it, and he's gonna take it all day. I'd be very surprised if we do not get a very high number rushing. Now, 185 is high, so it is on the threshold there, but I think we're gonna do it. So, all right. So we're disagreeing on 2, so we're going to have a new leader by at least 2. So we'll see what happens going into the bowl game where we will decide a winner. All right.
Hold me. I'm scared.
Yes, indeed. All right. So notes from the sim. I'll keep it pretty quick and easy. Despite the fact that we are the road team here, which usually gives you a pretty good disadvantage in sims because they don't factor in the fact that 3/4 of the crowd's going to be Gator fans, which is probably the way it's going to be. We went 9-1 in the Sims. Again, we don't use that as a predictive tool. We have not all season, though. I will remind you, we went 8-2 against Old Miss, and what happened? So game's been pretty accurate. Again, not gonna use it as predictive tool. The only loss we gave up 300 plus passing yards, 50% third down conversion, and had a -2 turnover margin. So we got to really screw up to lose is what that means. The defense has to just, I don't know, not play. I'm not sure what is going to be the scenario where you give up over 300 yards passing, 50% third downs, and -2 turnovers to this team. But there you have it. That was the scenario where we lost. And it was still only 5 points, by the way. But anyway, there were a couple close wins, however. I will say that there were actually 2 overtime games, which was surprising. But again, in both of those, we allowed either a high third down conversion rate or gave up a high number of passing yards, neither of which I find to be very likely. I'm going to put the key stat on passing numbers here. I will say if we give up more than 240 or 250 passing, it's probably going to be trouble. So I'm going to say that's going to be the key number here, that we need to keep it under that to keep this thing very well in hand. However, excessively high on third down, right? Like 45 plus on third down, which again is extremely unlikely based on what we've seen from this team and what the stats would show. Yeah, okay, that could cause a problem too, potentially, depending on how they're getting it, right? Possibly. But that one I think is a little less significant than the passing yards. If we somehow give up a ton of passing yards to this team, which again, I just don't see it. But if that happens, then yeah, we need to start probably getting concerned that it's going to be a problem. But that's the takeaway that I have from this. So with that, those are the thoughts based on the Sims. Again, 9-1 overall. I'd say I like our chances. Let's put it that. So with that, I think that pretty much wraps this one up. Again, we went a little long again on this one. Just a lot to talk about with a huge win. So apologies for going over our 90-minute target on this, but really thanks to everyone for listening and continuing to listen. We really do appreciate it. And again, hope you enjoyed as much as we enjoyed doing it. So that pretty much wraps it up for me. Any closing thoughts from you there, Randy?
That's it, my man. Outside of that, our next regularly scheduled pod will be, we will record next Monday the 2nd. We'll drop it the night of the 2nd, going on to Tuesday the 3rd to review the FSU game. And
the FSU win, right?
The FSU win, correct, sir. Correct, sir. So there's that. And so having that been said, I tell you what, let's sign us off. Wherever you are, whenever you may be listening, thank you for taking the time, and we will see you around Gator Nation.